Well, hello there, dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 10, Part 2, Making Foreign Policy. The main idea behind this civics lesson is in the United States, the President is responsible for formulating and carrying out the nation's foreign policy. The President does not make foreign policy decisions alone, but seeks advice from many governmental and non-governmental groups. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you'll be able to describe the role the President and executive departments play in making foreign policy, examine the powers Congress has over foreign policy, and explain how private groups and citizens can help shape foreign policy. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. Sarah was upset. She had learned that whales might become extinct because they were being hunted. Every year there were fewer and fewer whales left. There must be something we can do, she thought. Sarah found out that in 1946, countries that hunted whales, including the United States, had formed the International Whaling Commission, or IWC. The goal of the IWC was to protect whales. The IWC set limits on the number of whales that could be killed. Even so, by the 1980s, there were so few whales left that the IWC decided to ban whaling for a while. However, Iceland, whose economy depended on whaling, refused to go along with the ban. "How can we stop Iceland from hunting whales?" asked Sarah. She wondered if people in the government could help. "Why don't you start by writing our representative in Congress?" suggested Sarah's father. So she did. Sarah is one person hoping to affect American foreign policy. Like Sarah, many people and organizations have ideas about Americans' relation with other countries. They want the government to take action to help achieve their goals. Who decides how the United States should behave toward other countries? Who decides what actions to take? As you will see, many people both inside and outside of government play a role in our foreign policy. Sarah was only one of many people who spoke out against whaling. The issue came to the attention of the President. The Constitution gives the President the major responsibility for making foreign policy. Since most foreign policy issues touch many parts of American life, from jobs to the environment, many departments and agencies of the executive branch get involved in foreign policy decisions. The President shapes foreign policy as both Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and as the nation's chief diplomat. The President sets defense policies, meets with leaders of other countries, and makes treaties and executive agreements. The President also appoints ambassadors to represent the United States in other countries and make budget proposals to Congress for defense spending and foreign aid. The President does not make foreign policy decisions alone, however. In the case of Iceland and whaling, the President might begin by asking the Chief of Staff to look into the matter. The Chief of Staff would then raise the question in a meeting with other members of the White House staff. Once the White House staff has talked over a problem, the Chief of Staff might send a letter to the Secretary of State asking for information and perhaps some recommendations. The Department of State advises the President on foreign policy. It also carries out foreign policy once that policy has been made. The Secretary of State works closely with the President and represents the United States in many diplomatic meetings. The Secretary is assisted by experts on many different parts of the world, such as the Middle East or Europe, and by experts on foreign policy. The Department of State also has nearly 16,000 officials working in other countries. These officials are known as Foreign Service Officers. They include ambassadors, who represent our country in embassies, or diplomatic offices around the world. They also include consuls, who help American business people and travelers abroad. Members of the Foreign Service carry out our foreign policy. They also give the State Department information about the countries in which they serve. When the President asked the Secretary of State to look into the whaling issue, here are some of the State Department offices and officials who took part. The Bureau of European Affairs has an Icelandic desk that keeps track of our relations with Iceland. The desk officer gave reports from our ambassador in Iceland. The Prime Minister of Iceland claimed that his country would take only a limited number of whales each year for a scientific study. The Bureau of Oceans and International Environment and Scientific Affairs gave evidence that Iceland's study is really an excuse to keep whaling. The Bureau of Legislative Affairs of the State Department tells the Secretary of State what actions are allowed by Congress. Congress had given the President power to use trade measures in this case. The Department of Defense also plays a part in making foreign policy. It advises the President on matters such as what weapons to make and where to place bases and troops. The President and the Secretary of Defense work closely with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the heads of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and Space Force. The United States Navy has bases in Iceland. These bases make a contribution to Iceland's economy, and the Department of Defense believes they are needed. The Secretary of Defense could warn the President that if trade were cut off, Iceland might close these bases. The National Security Council, or NSC, advises the President on the country's safety. The NSC includes the President and Vice President and the Secretaries of State and Defense. The Director of the CIA and the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as other experts, also attend NSC meetings. The President calls a meeting of the NSC when a crisis comes up somewhere and American security seems in danger. The President's National Security Advisor is the Director of the NSC. Like the Secretary of Defense, he or she would consider how changing our trade policy with Iceland could affect NATO and our bases. Depending on the problem, the President may seek help from other executive departments and agencies. In the whaling case, for instance, the Department of Commerce played an important role. One division of the Department of Commerce is responsible for protecting marine mammals and representing the United States on the International Whaling Commission. Although the President plays the major role in making and carrying out foreign policy, Congress also has some power over foreign policy. The Senate has the power to approve or reject treaties. The President's choices for the diplomatic corps must also be approved by the Senate. Furthermore, only Congress can declare war. Congress has power over foreign policy because it controls the federal budget, including spending on defense and foreign aid. The executive and legislative branches sometimes have conflicts over foreign policy. In 1999, President Clinton clashed with the Senate over the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, a treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons tests worldwide. Clinton urged senators to ratify the treaty, saying it would help prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. Republican senators, however, argued the agreement would weaken national security. The Senate voted to reject the treaty. Several congressional committees are important in making foreign policy. Those most directly involved are the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the House International Relations Committee, and the Armed Services Committees in both houses. These committees hold hearings and write and study bills that affect our relations with other countries. The Secretary of State and other executive branch officials are often asked to come before these committees to answer questions. Private organizations and individuals can also shape foreign policy. Sarah had read about the whaling problem in a magazine published by an environmental protection group. Many groups have special interests that are affected by foreign policy. These groups want to have a voice in what that policy will be. Countries around the world are linked by trade. Businesses that trade with other nations have a direct interest in foreign policy. Restaurant owners, for example, might want to buy Icelandic fish because of its low cost. During the whaling controversy, however, environmental organizations convinced several major American restaurant chains to boycott Icelandic fish. This action hurt Iceland's economy, causing Iceland's leaders to rethink their whaling policy. Today, Americans are buying more foreign-made goods than we are selling to other countries. The result has been the loss of many jobs in the United States. Labor groups, therefore, try to get executive branch policymakers and members of Congress to protect jobs by limiting or taxing certain imports and by putting pressure on our trading partners to buy more American products. Many other organizations, such as the environmental group that got Sarah interested in the whaling issue, try to affect foreign policy. Anti-nuclear groups want the United States to stop sending nuclear weapons to support NATO forces in Europe. Church groups and human rights groups also get involved. The United States is home to people of diverse backgrounds, some of whom try to shape policy toward areas of the world they care about. Many Irish Americans, for example, urged the United States government to support peace talks aimed at ending years of fighting in Northern Ireland. Thanks in part to American involvement, British and Irish leaders reached a peace accord in 1998. Individuals can also play a role in foreign policy. Americans who keep up with international news and who study, travel, or work abroad learn about foreign countries and our government's policies toward them. Being better informed helps citizens make better decisions on foreign policy. There are many ways that citizens who care about foreign policy can make a difference. Running for office or voting for a candidate who shares your views are two important ways. Letting your senator or representative know what you think about the issues is another way. Members of Congress want to know how citizens feel about matters of foreign policy, especially if an issue puts American troops in harm's way. In the whaling matter, Iceland agreed to go along with the IWC ban. It decided not to risk losing the American market for its fish. In this case, citizens groups and individuals played an important role in getting our government to put pressure on Iceland. So there you have it with Lesson 10, Part 2, Making Foreign Policy. At this point, you should know that some problems require the cooperation of many countries, each of which has their own interests. Multiple groups within the federal executive branch help make America's foreign policy. Congress also plays a role in making and influencing foreign policy, and making foreign policy is a juggling act in which the concerns of many different groups must be coordinated. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of civics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in class, Dragons. See ya!